I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I'm waiting on this video. I've been waiting on this video. Listen, for those of you who don't know, if you play, especially if you play the game of basketball and live under a fucking rock, there's a situation and a trend called "We Are Done with the '90s." Basically, exposing Michael Jordan, saying he can't go left. Old heads are washed, yada yada. If a nigga like me in my era would go back to that era, we would dominate, shit like that. And like JxmyHighroller is like somebody that we have been waiting on to drop a video on "We Done with the '90s" because this shit has been all over TikTok, Twitter. Niggas have been going back and forth. Now, in my opinion, I've been seeing hella disrespect. In my opinion, y'all have to understand, yeah, their basketball back then was completely different. If you go back then, in this era, you would dominate, of course. But y'all are disrespecting the niggas that paved the way for us, bro. If it wasn't for niggas like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant would not exist, bro. Like, y'all realize that, right? Like, he basically based his game off of him. Those old washed players made the game evolve over years, bro. And y'all be like the amount of disrespect I've been seeing is crazy. Now, in my opinion, Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time. I love LeBron James as well. I'm not a hater. I'm not a hater towards any of these players, bro. But the beef between the eras and the players is crazy, especially niggas on NBA Twitter. But this person is who we've been waiting for, bro. So let's get into the video, man. The video is 25 minutes and 27 seconds. He uploaded this as soon as I was about to edit my video, bro. Like, this is crazy, but I've been waiting on his video. Let's get into it.
My brothers, we are in the midst of a civil war. The age-old debate of past versus present has reached critical mass, and sides have been taken. A revolution is taking place, and we're losing good men. Old school versus new school. Back in the day versus modern day. A story as old as time itself. I tried to ignore this bloodbath, but just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, it all got so much worse.
We done with the '90s.
Film of NBA
Old head started that shit, bro. And old head, like, that nigga, his video went viral. That's crazy, man.
Games from the 80s and 90s coming to light, showing that the good old days were in fact not that good. This whole time, the punishing defense of legend was actually just a bunch of plumbers camping out in the paint looking for someone to hack. True. Shots clanking off the backboard, players running around aimlessly, wreaking havoc. And worst of all, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the supposed greatest basketball player of all time, didn't even have a left hand. What is going on? Have we been lied to about basketball in the 80s and 90s? Are we really done with that era of hoops? Or are we being deceived by lowlights, misinformation, and cherry-picked clips? Well, I think I've got an answer. And some of y'all ain't gonna like it.
Bro, I gotta see his opinion. Listen, his opinion matters the most, bro. Out of any basketball analyst on YouTube, his opinions matter. He has shut up people like Cash Nasty, especially Cash Nasty. I remember watching a video with Cash Nasty. He was watching a video, JxmyHighroller. Cash Nasty was quiet. I think he said Jordan almost averaged 50 points per game in a playoff series. Cash Nasty was quiet as shit. I gotta see this, bro. I have to see this, bro. I've been waiting on this video, bro.
Today's video is sponsored.
We are not about to see this sponsor, bro. That is not happening right now. I respect you, Jimmy, but not right now. No. I gotta see what you gotta say, bro.
We done with the 90s. 5 simple words that have completely divided fans of the NBA. I've seen well thought out video essays, hard-hitting analysis, testimonies from past and present players talking about their experience in the league and how it's changed over the years. And none of those things managed to do what these 5 simple words have done in just a week. Soon enough, the clips came rolling in of players from that era dribbling off their feet, throwing up air balls, and putting together moves that you might see at your local high school's JV game. So, for whatever it's worth, here is my long-winded take on this whole discussion.
The fuck? We found the tapes.
I want to begin by saying what this discourse has taught me more than anything else is that NBA fans today never actually took the time to go back and watch games of the past.
I did. I ain't gonna lie. When I listen, y'all. When I started playing basketball, I'm gonna stop pausing. Well, when I first started playing basketball, I was actually going back and watching 90s games, 80s games, and the 2000s era because I wanted to learn how to play basketball, bro. So I had to go from the start to the back to the present.
Brothers, I have been harping on this for years, begging for fans of the game, whether you are new or have been watching for years, to just go back and watch full games. Not highlights, not clips, full-length games of eras from the past. And after seeing this discussion devolve into where it is today, it is clear to me that most people never take the time. I'm seeing countless fans have this sort of awakening as they're watching films of these old games as if the footage was buried or lost and it's finally being unearthed for the world to see. It's been right here on YouTube for the past 15 years. You mean to tell me the same fans who chime in with a full-blown thesis on the GOAT debate never spared the time to even watch the games they were referring to? I guess that does explain a lot. Now, I'd like to think I'm somewhere in the middle on this whole discussion. I have said on multiple occasions that players in today's NBA are simply more skilled than players of the past, which has resulted in bigger stat lines and higher point totals than ever before. It's not the defense that has gotten worse, it's the offense that has gotten better. You know, that whole spiel. But I also have an appreciation for the greats that came before and how incredible some players of past eras were. In fact, I almost feel like I'm hallucinating seeing this 90s basketball slander campaign unfold in front of my eyes. It feels like everyone's perception on the age-old debate changed literally overnight. I know that's not the case, but after seeing all of this play out, it sure feels that way. But today, I'm not just gonna show you some cherry-picked clips or unhinge this narrative even further. I'm gonna show you real film, real data, and proof of how we might actually be done with the 80s and 90s. And of course, if Michael Jordan really had no left hand.
This is why I'm here. This is like to hear his opinion. I don't give a fuck about the rest of y'all opinion. I really don't give a fuck about it. Because a lot of y'all don't know shit about basketball. Y'all just be talking. There's some of y'all who are serious, and then there's most of y'all that are trolling. Like, y'all trolling, bro. It's crazy. But most of y'all are serious. Are we actually done with the 90s? Our era is better, obviously. But this man's opinion matters the most.
Spoiler, he did. Now, I have been an advocate for the modern players are better than players of the past movement for quite some time now. In fact, as crazy as it is for younger fans to say Michael Jordan was trash, it's just as absurd for older fans to say the game hasn't even.
This shit is crazy. I'm sorry. Michael Jordan would beat Jaylen Brown in today's NBA. Y'all are really disrespectful for saying that shit. Like, it's so crazy how y'all say that.
Evolved and gotten better over the last 30 years. Because that's all this debate really is. Young fans versus old fans, or fans that watched this versus fans that are watching this. But objectively, players today are much better than they were in the 80s and even the 90s. Specifically, the lower end of the talent pool in the NBA today is vastly better than it was in the past. I think great players would be great in any era, but with the spacing, the shot making, the emphasis on offense as opposed to defense has made the depth across the NBA today just way ahead of where it was in the 80s and the 90s. There was, without exaggeration, guys in the NBA throughout the 80s and 90s that were on NBA rosters just to accumulate fouls and sit in the paint and be big. Some of these players were offensively inept, and that was okay because their role was not to create offense. But in today's NBA, where offense reigns supreme, there is no room for these players. Now, you could and should go back and watch film of games, not highlights, from this era and see just how limited the skill sets of some of these players were. The shot making, for the most part, was limited to set jumpers, slashers coming downhill for layups, and big men trying to muscle their way to a bucket down low in the midst of what appears to be a wrestling match. Catch a player off guard with the double team, and they immediately pick up their dribble. Simple things like guards turning their back to the basket 20 feet out instead of creating space off the dribble. Even players looking down at the ball while trying to get out on a fast break was very common in this era. And these aren't lowlights or cherry-picked incidences. This is just what the game looked like 35 years ago. But even without film, nearly every metric suggests modern players are more capable of players in the past. Free throw percentage was worse, three-point percentage was worse, turnover percentage was higher. They used to shoot more free throws, but still ended up with far less points. Now, this is not to say that this era of hoops was trash. That's just disingenuous and flat out wrong. These were the best players in the world at the time. It was just simply not as good as what it is today.
Exactly, bro. Sports evolves. The game evolves. That's what y'all don't understand. That's why I never like went to comments about this. I was waiting for this video. That time was a good time for basketball for that era. Obviously, our era that we're in now, the players are going to evolve to a more advanced era, bro. That's how it is, bro.
But maybe there's another layer to this that needs to be factored in to really understand why these players were not as skilled as the players of today. Now, despite this being a very relevant topic for years, the idea of rule changes and how these changes have affected the game still remain a mystery to some. Players were a product of their era and the rules of their era. The first step to discovering greats of the past is to watch film of them play. The next step is to gather and understand the context of the film you are watching. When you see a 6'9" Magic Johnson go flying down the court with what looks like kind of a stiff dribble, you may think the man has no bag. But my friends, Magic Johnson did have a bag, but the rules in place at the time only allowed him to reach so far into it before he got called for every violation in the rulebook. Consider the fact that any move where your hand wasn't completely on top of the basketball was considered a carry. No 0 steps, no gather steps. You get 2 steps, and anything more was called a travel. No backward shuffles to create separation. No lunging into players to draw easy fouls. Here's a clip of Danny Ainge hitting Kevin McHale with a hezzy in the mid-80s. And the man thinks he just witnessed witchcraft.
But when practice sessions were completed, some of the most competitive competition began.
Double dribble! No! Done! No, I double dribble! Double dribble, he did too! I did.
Here's some more clips of players getting called for travels and carries doing moves that are very typical and allowed in 2024. 90% of the moves you see today, the very method most players generate their offense, would be called for some sort of violation 40 or 30 or even 20 years ago. And this isn't just some cop-out or excuse as to why these players of the past weren't doing this stuff. The rule changes are real, documented pieces of NBA history. You can literally look them up. The game got looser, players grew up and shaped their game around these looser rules, and now they have free reign to let their basketball bag run wild. But that's kind of the point. Players of the past didn't grow up practicing 25-footers. They didn't work on a dozen moves to create separation. They played in offensive systems that focused on the team, the collective, schemes and sets that resembled something closer to college basketball, where ISO possessions were few and far in between, so they never developed an arsenal to counter these situations. The rules of the time limited their game, which resulted in them having a more limited skill set than players today. If Larry Bird...
Basically, he's saying, like, back in the day, it was a system sport. Like, the game was more focused around who's open, who gets around more. And compared to now, a lot of players, which y'all know, are most likely ISO players. So he's saying basically back in the day, they weren't, like, star players weren't as free as they are now. They were limited back then. Like a travel back then, like a travel now was way worse back then. Like, if you gather 2-step, it's going to be a travel back in the day. If you gather 2-step right now, it's not going to be a travel.
Bird grew up with a 3-point line, he might have been the greatest long-range shooter ever, but he didn't. And as a result, he didn't shoot a lot of threes and he wasn't as efficient as the best shooters today. We can sit here and assume these players of the past might be as capable as players today if they were playing under the same rules and conditions, but they didn't. And I don't think we should assume that. The fact is, they played in a different time and they became a product of that time. But that's not to say the game was trash back then, or that the superstars of these eras couldn't compete in today's league.
This was a long time ago.
Now, as time goes by, I think it's easy to forget just how long ago 1980 was. 44 years ago, if my math is correct, which is in fact a very long time ago. In 1985, Magic Johnson won an NBA title, Larry Bird won the league MVP, and Michael Jordan won Rookie of the Year. That was 39 years ago from today, which is the same exact amount of time that has passed from that 1985 season to the year the NBA was founded in 1946. Look at these clips. Do you think these players could compete with the likes of Bird, Magic, and Jordan? Let me answer that for you. No. But take the best players of the 80s and 90s, and could they compete in today's league? Absolutely.
In my opinion, if you put, listen. If you put Michael Jordan in this era, he's still gonna ball. You have players that y'all compare Michael Jordan to DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is a dominant mid-range assassin. That's my favorite player. DeMar DeRozan, mid-range assassin. And then you got Kawhi Leonard as a good defender. Jordan was a good defender. If you put Michael Jordan in this era, I guarantee Michael Jordan's average over 25 points per game. I don't know about that 50 points per game, 40 points per game nonsense, but he will adjust in this era. If you put the top players in the 90s and the 80s in today's era, they will adjust. They will adjust. It's basketball. Y'all know that. Y'all know when you play basketball, eventually you get better, right? When you practice every day, you get better, right? You adjust, right? You adjust to that new system. If they make the three-point line way longer than it is right now, you're going to play basketball every day, right? You're going to play on that court every day. You're going to adjust. If you put Michael Jordan in this era, Michael Jordan is going to adjust. And y'all know Michael Jordan's an obsessed winner. Y'all watch The Last Dance. Y'all know that. I'm not saying he'll be better than LeBron and all them niggas. I'm just saying he would adjust in this era. He would adjust. If you put the Dream in this era, listen, he will adjust. You put Larry Bird in this era, he will adjust, especially Larry Bird. Larry Bird and Michael Jordan were two players that were obsessed with the game. They will do anything just to win. And y'all are saying they're washed. They're nothing. Everyone knows if you put a dominant player in another era, he will adjust and he will become better and he will grow.
Give these guys some credit. Watching this today is the equivalent of watching this in the 80s. And yet this product is vastly closer to the basketball we see today than this product was to what fans were witnessing in the 80s. In fact, we can use different superstars as sort of a cross-generational measuring stick to see just how stiff the competition has been over the years. Larry and Magic played Michael, who played Kobe, who played LeBron, who has played the players of today. And nowhere down this timeline was there any real jump or fall off in production or level of competition from one era to the next. Each era had their stars. Those stars crossed paths with stars of other eras, and no one era was clear-cut ahead of the other. If the 80s were so bad, then why did players of the 90s have to wait for those guys to get old and retire to have a shot at winning? And if the 90s...
That makes a lot of sense. Because they were just better than them at that time. That actually makes so much sense.
90s were so bad, then why did players of the 2000s not win until those guys retired? We don't need to assume that adjacent eras could compete with one another because we actually saw it. MJ struggled with some of the guys that came before him. Shaq struggled against Hakeem and Kobe struggled against MJ.
Look at that. You see that? Like, MJ did struggle. Listen, Michael Jordan, like I said, Michael Jordan was on a Bulls team that had nothing. He struggled against the Celtics. Yeah, he dropped 40. Yeah, he dropped 30. Yeah, he dropped 60. Yeah, he dropped 50. But he still struggled against a legendary Celtics team. Who wouldn't? Shaq struggled against your dream, but Shaq was young. You feel me? They all were young when they struggled against these vets, but they are vets, so they have an advantage. That's the thing. You're young, you're talented, but the vets are in the way. So when the vets are go bye-bye, that's when you be like, okay, he's finally gone. It's my time to shine.
LeBron struggled against guys like Duncan and Dirk, and players of today have struggled to get past some of the older players in the league who are a product of the previous era. Now, what we shouldn't do is jump 3 or 4 eras at a time, ignoring entire decades of evolution and saying the game back then was better or even as good as it is today. At a certain point, the knowledge and wisdom that comes from actually witnessing decades of NBA history, like some older fans have, becomes skewed and watered down by nostalgia and a generational bias. Superstars are superstars because their game transcends the era they played in, but they also played in an inferior league. These two ideas are not mutually exclusive, and although generational talents of the past would do just fine today, this same logic does not apply to the vast majority of the league throughout the 80s and 90s.
Them dunks are crazy, I ain't gonna lie. Some of these dunks are just nice, man. When did the NBA become not trash?
So if the 80s were inferior to today's league and the 90s were inferior as well, when did the NBA become not trash? Well, it depends on how you look at it. Ironically, I think there's a pretty clear distinction to the skill set of players before Michael Jordan hit his peak and after. For example, the early 90s and late 90s, although being in the same decade, were massively different in play style and skill set. Think for a second about the fact that Magic Johnson was still in his prime in the early 90s and Allen Iverson was entering his prime in the late 90s. In less than 10 years, basketball became a massively different game. By the late 90s, the players who grew up watching Jordan fly through the air and slice up defenses were in the league and were reshaping the role that perimeter players played. Guys like Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, Stephon Marbury, Grant Hill, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter. All these guys came into the league around the same time and were products of what they saw MJ do throughout his career. Players with a skill set that more closely resembles what we see today than it did to the skill sets of players of the 80s and even early 90s. This is where I think most fans might make the distinction of when the league really took a leap not in competitiveness, but rather play style. You can go back and watch these guys play, and it's not too different than watching an NBA game today. Or you can point to the shift in play style that happened in the late 2010s, after Steph Curry redefined what makes a great championship caliber player, and the league adjusted to this new three-point heavy, perimeter-focused style of basketball. Similar to Jordan, the kids who watched what Steph was doing in the mid-2010s emulated that style of play, tailored their games to it, and are now in the league doing things that only Steph could do a decade ago. So if we're done with the 80s and 90s, where can we look back and no longer apply this era tax on these players? I think most fans would agree that the turn of the century is where the modern era of hyper-skilled players began. You can say objectively that this era was not trash, and most players of this generation would do just fine in today's league.
I guarantee y'all throw Tracy McGrady in this era right now. Tracy McGrady, healthy, right now. He's shitting on everybody. Tracy McGrady can dunk, he can shoot, he can play defense, he can dribble, he can play. Oh my, bro, this man was ridiculous, bro.
But if that is the case, then modern NBA fans are holding a ticking time bomb, and they might not even know it.
What else we got, Jimmy? We done with the 10s and 20s.
When we are older and a new generation of NBA fans claim our favorite players, the guys we grew up watching, are not as good as the players of the future, what will you have to say? Right now, there is no one in the world who can shoot like Steph Curry. But inevitably, there will be, and eventually, there will be many players who can shoot like him. His records will fall, his percentages won't look as good through the lens of 2040, and although his legacy will be cemented, his actual game will be put into question. And based on the arguments I'm hearing today on why past players were trash, we will have nothing to say that will change their minds. We know that Curry was the first to do what he's doing. He is a pioneer of the modern NBA. We have context to back up our claims. But if we aren't willing to hear older fans out today, what makes us think younger fans will hear us out in the future?
That's so true. Listen, Stephen Curry inspires so many little kids to become shooters. And y'all, we see how Stephen Curry is the greatest shooter of all time. You don't think there's gonna be somebody else after him, bro? Look what he's done. He's inspired. Like, that's one thing about basketball. When you inspire younger generation, younger kids, they want to be just like you. They want to wear your jersey. They want to shoot like you. They want to play like you. Somebody will become a better shooter than Stephen Curry. We don't know who it will be, but it's going to be somebody. So he has a point, because you guys are inspiring other kids to become amazing basketball players, and I love that.
Mark my words. There will be a day when young fans will go back, watch film of LeBron, and say he couldn't compete with players of the future. In fact, it's already happening. Fans saying he has no bag. Younger players putting up bigger numbers than he ever did. Skill sets a bit deeper with games that look more polished. It's all fun and games now to crack jokes about past eras. But our day will come too, and it ain't gonna be pretty. But Giannis could only run and dunk. Your era was trash. Y'all had a dude who couldn't get 2 feet off the ground running the whole league. You can scramble to pull up clips and show the numbers, but their minds will already be made up. This is why I think it is so important to have genuine, thought-out discourse about the game if you're truly a fan of it. But to all of the older fans out there, you kinda started this whole thing. For years, we heard y'all badmouth modern players, saying the league is soft, players today couldn't compete back then. Back in my day, real men played the game. Y'all cannot be mad that some fans are done with the 80s and 90s when y'all never even gave modern basketball a chance. Sure, a lot of fans never took the time to go back and watch the greats of the past, but let's be honest for a second. Older fans don't watch games today. They catch a stray clip on Facebook of LeBron flopping, and like an echo chamber of disgruntled old men, they just start firing away in the comments, agreeing with one another. Y'all asked for this. I've been watching the NBA since the mid-2000s. Kobe, D-Wade, McGrady, Iverson, Shaq, Nash, those were my guys. But I can acknowledge those greats and say they were incredible, while also acknowledging that that version of the NBA as a whole was not as refined or as good as it is today. Now, will I be able to make that distinction in 20 years when some snot-nosed brat tells me my glorious king was trash? I'm not so sure.
What else we got? With the left-hand shit? Michael Jordan really have a no left? Nah, this is what I really want to see, because I've watched a lot of Jordan clips, bro. He's the reason why I play basketball. So I want to see what he has to say, bro.
Now, it's time to once and for all take a real close look at this accusation that Michael Jordan did not have a left hand. I felt like I was having a bad dream when I first saw this claim, but unfortunately, I was not. I feel like no one actually believes this. This is just some high-level trolling. But in an effort to stop this nonsense from spreading any further, I have no choice but to take these accusations seriously. So I selected 8 random games ranging from Michael Jordan's rookie season all the way up to the mid-90s, and play by play gathered all of his possessions throughout these games, charted when he went to his right, when he went to his left, and what those possessions resulted in. And here is what I found. Jordan made a move with his left hand or his right hand 227 times. Of those 227 moves, 121 of them were with his right hand, and 106 of them
That's why I like him, bro. He be doing the stat shit. Like, this is
were with his left hand. Of the 121 right-handed moves, he passed up or got fouled on 54 of them, so I didn't bother charting those. 65 of these moves resulted in a shot, in which he made 63% of them and only turned the ball over 2 times. Now, moves that he made with his left hand resulted in a pass or him getting fouled 45 times, while 55 of these left-handed moves ended up in a shot, in which he made 51%, and 6 moves resulted in a turnover. So based on this data, Jordan was definitely more comfortable going right, especially near the rim and even on mid-range jumpers. He struggled a bit in comparison to his right whenever he pulled up off of a left-handed dribble. But overall, Jordan went to his left 47% of the time, and although it was his weaker hand, he was still above league average even while going to his left. But 8 games in 350 minutes of basketball is a relatively small sample size. So I looked into it further and found this: a detailed breakdown of Michael Jordan's shot chart and shot tendencies in 3 seasons from 1990 to 1992. 126 games and over 4,800 minutes in total, tracking exactly what Michael did on the court for 3 seasons. And here's what the data shows. In total, Michael made 1,074 moves in isolation, going either to his right or to his left hand. 48% of those moves were with his right hand, and 52% of those moves were with his left hand. When going to the right, Michael shot 61.7% on 410 shots with 15 turnovers, resulting in 1.38 points per possession. When going to his left, Michael shot 61.3% on 421 shots with 36 turnovers,
So Michael Jordan had a left.
resulting in 1.31 points per possession. So even with a much larger sample size, Michael not only had a left hand, he went to it just as often as he went to his right, and was nearly as proficient with his left as he was with his right. Now, for some context, throughout this 3-year span, Michael made on average 4.4 left-handed isolation moves, or in this case, isolation possessions, that resulted in one.
So I was right, bro. So listen, I started playing basketball, I say 2012, and I used to watch a lot of Michael Jordan highlights. Like a lot of Michael Jordan highlights, like a lot, full games and everything, because I want to see who Michael Jordan was, how his game was, because his shoes and everything. But I used to see him going left a lot. So when I seen y'all saying Michael Jordan had no left and calling him Jalen Brown, that shit was getting me upset, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure the highlights on my phone that's downloaded on my phone, on my memory card, is him going left a lot. So I'm like, bro, y'all were saying Michael Jordan had no left, and I was like, y'all are trolling, because there's no way y'all serious with that shit, bro.
0.31 points per possession. Now, here are some prolific scores from this season and their overall tendencies and efficiency in isolation. Keep in mind, this data includes both right-handed and left-handed moves from these players. And now here is Michael Jordan with just his left hand.
I'm sure Kobe not up there.
So, yeah. I'd say contrary to what has now become popular.
So y'all telling me Michael Jordan ISO'd the most going with his left hand compared to most NBA players in the league right now. Cash Nasty gonna be mad when he see LeBron down there, but I knew Michael Jordan had a left hand, bro, because y'all niggas is trolling. There's no way y'all niggas are serious, bro. Y'all have seen the clips. I have clips downloaded on my phone. I have watched full games when I started playing basketball. There's no way niggas was really saying Michael Jordan had no left hand. There's no way niggas is really saying Michael Jordan is Jaylen Brown. Fucking Jaylen Brown? Are you fucking kidding me, bro? Are you fucking serious? Y'all are, yo, this we don't in 90s shit is over, bro. Like, I respect LeBron James and Michael Jordan, but the disrespect to these players is crazy from y'all young niggas, bro. It's crazy.
Belief, Michael Jordan had a left hand. And I cannot believe we had to dig into
the best ISO player going his left hand, bro. Are you fucking kidding me, bro? Really? Michael Jordan is up here and LeBron is down here.
To the data to come to this conclusion.
This is crazy, bro. This is ridiculous. This is why I waited for him to upload. This is ridiculous.
I think the overall idea that the 80s and 90s were a far less skilled time in the NBA compared to today is probably fair. I mean, you'd be crazy to think the game hasn't evolved in 4 decades. But to say the league was trash back then is just wrong. I think more than anything, it's the style of play and the way basketball games would unfold back then that really throws some fans off when they go to watch film of these old games. It's like looking at a box score from the mid-2000s and thinking everyone sucked because the games finished with final scores in the 80s. But the players weren't bad, it was just a different game back then. It was slower, more methodical, more team and scheme-based than it is today. And similarly, I think you could say the 80s and 90s had its fair share of bad basketball. But that doesn't mean all the players were bad, especially the superstars of those eras. That was just the state of the game they were playing in.
That was their play style. That was their era, bro. That was good. They were good for their era, bro.
I think some older fans have a skewed perception of how good the game was back then, but I also think they just genuinely liked that style of ball regardless of the evolution of the league. In 20 years, there could be a dozen players around the league that shoot like Steph Curry, but I doubt we will hold the same appreciation and affinity for those players as we did to the guy who pioneered this style of play and did it during the good old days. In the 90s, no one looked back at how the league was in the 60s claiming it was better. And so realistically, we shouldn't be looking back at the 80s and 90s claiming the league was superior than it is today, or even just as good for that matter. A lot of these ideas that favor modern basketball are becoming more mainstream as fans dive deeper into these topics and add context to narratives that have been floating around for decades. But I think this push to be done with the 80s and 90s is a bit overkill. We want to add context and nuance and knowledge to these discussions, not remove entire decades from it altogether. Sadly, I don't think any of this has or will change anyone's mind. This revolt against old school ball was either confirmation of what you already thought, or this entire discussion is just blasphemy to you. Are we done with the 80s and 90s? Maybe, but for the sake of the game and the greats that paved the way, I sure hope not.
Listen, that was a good video, bro. Listen. Y'all send this to every basketball, TikToker, YouTuber, all of them. All the ones that have been talking shit. Because his opinions matter, bro. Like I said, like I said and like he said, if it wasn't for those errors, the game would not be how it is today, bro. That's one thing y'all have to respect about. Y'all can say Larry Bird was trash, Michael Jordan was trash, whatever. But if it wasn't for these people inspiring people like the younger kids, the game wouldn't be how it is. Just like he said with Steph Curry. Steph Curry changed the game for basketball forever. Everyone shoot threes. He inspired younger players. But in my opinion, bro, I respect the 90s and the 80s and our era right now. The old heads, y'all gotta stop with the disrespect, bro. Like the disrespect towards our era is ridiculous. Yeah, it's more like easier, you know, it's more like floppier. You feel me? It's not as aggressive, but who cares? The play style y'all had back then is different from now. I understand y'all missed the 90s and 90s play style, but it's changed, bro. It is what it is. But the fact that y'all said Michael Jordan had no left hand, that shit was pissing me off, bro. Because this man, you saying he got no left hand, right? You got a guy going right, averaging 30 points a game, 40 in a series. Just make him go left, right? That shit obviously didn't work, so he started going left. So he obviously had a left hand, but the fact that he was one of the best ISO players, even on his left hand, is outrageous, bro. I've been waiting for this video, bro, because I'm tired of seeing we done with the 9. I'm tired of seeing the disrespect. Like, I respect LeBron James and Michael Jordan, but the disrespect towards other players in that era is ridiculous because y'all niggas are just weird for that. Y'all say y'all go in that era, y'all will dominate. Of course you would, because y'all have the mindset, the play style of our era and going back then. If you were to put those niggas in our era and our play style, they'll eventually adjust and they will shit on you because they're NBA players. They play basketball every single day. You don't play basketball every day, bro. You don't. So obviously, that person in the old days, if you put them in our era, they're going to be better than you, bro. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, we done with the 90s, woo, whatever. I don't care about that shit, bro. I just want to see what Jimmy had to say about the Michael Jordan thing. That's what I really want to see. But this whole we done with the 90s shit, y'all cut that shit out, bro. Cut it out. Cut it out. Watch basketball. Support your team. At the end of the day, respect legends, bro, because they all paved the way for our game. If it wasn't for the legends, basketball would not be how it is today. I love this video, bro. More videos coming soon. Tell me what y'all think, bro.